Welcome to Surrender School.
Welcome, everybody. I'm going to talk about the mission statement. The mission statement at Surrender School is, at Surrender School, we recover. Our mission is to share 12-step and other supportive recovery solutions with those who want a healthy relationship with food. We have a lot of people who are in other programs, so obviously it's a healthy relationship, I guess, with yourself is what we're actually talking about. Okay, so we are not an official 12-step meeting, but we do try to adhere to the spirit of the traditions of the 12 steps. And all of us that are part of Surrender School are 12-steppers. Our background is all that. And if we added everybody up, it's hundreds of years of 12-step experience, which we probably shouldn't talk about. Okay. All right, let's take a moment to feel your breath going in and out and feel your feet on the floor. And let's say the set-aside prayer together. God, help me to set aside everything I think I know to leave space for what I have yet to learn. All right, with that, Michael, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Hey, well, thank you. That was quick and easy. So today we're talking about some ideas around how to transform the blind spot in each of the instincts. And when I use the word blind spot, I mean that in the strongest way, is that when we identify our blind spot, we find that it's something that we easily and effortlessly forget to do, or are disinterested in it, or just have no drive to do it. And that's not because we're bad. Everybody has a blind spot in one form or another. It's just the way we appear to be hardwired. So I'm going to go through the suggestions for each of the instincts based on blind spot. And then, we'll have a conversation at the end of each instinct, unless there's too many conversations, then I'll just cut it off and I'll just finish off, and then I could do it one of two ways. I could just go through all three, but maybe we could consider this, that I'm going to do the self-present instinct first, and that should take about 10 minutes, and then leave 5 minutes for questions. And I'm going to do the sexual instinct next. That should take about 10 minutes, and then leave 5 minutes for questions. And then the social instinct, same way, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes for questions. That should leave us 15 minutes at the end of the class for general questions. How does that sound?
That sounds good.
Okay, we'll give it a go. And of course, I usually change plans right when I start, but that's the way it goes.
That's the way it
All
goes.
right. Okay, so starting with the self-present instinct, if you remember, it had to do with practicality, with well-being, taking care of practical things, money, finances, health, etc. So I'm going to give all of these lists to Cheryl to put on the website, so you don't have to maniacally take notes, unless you really love to do that. And some people find that they learn better that way. But so we start with just this idea: create more regularity in your life, regular meals, routines, and habits. Well, if you may have noticed that you have routines and habits that you just naturally do every day without thinking, and trying to institute any one of these things, there's going to be about 15 to 20 suggestions on each instinct. And I want to invite you to just consider to choose the one that means the most important to you, and work on that 1 week at a time. Because if you add more than one, you're going against your whole instinctual habit form, and it won't work. So for some people, regularity in meals, who cares? I mean, I don't care if I eat at 1, 6, 10, or whatever. So that's certainly not something of interest to me. But some folks really have a wish to start having regular meals. So the challenge becomes, what kind of support do I need to remember this? And what kind of compassion do I need to bring to the task? Because I may set this aim, this number one aim, maybe this is my aim. My spouse is really wanting these regular meals and maybe regular, now let's just stick with meals. And so I'm inclined to encourage you to choose 1 or 2 days a week in which you set a schedule for eating at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. or 5 p.m., whatever you decide on. But do not try to do it every day, because again, you're going against the instinctual tide of your habits. If you're a self-pres person, this comes like easy peasy. We have regular meals every day. Well, in our household, we have yet to have a regular meal for 27 years. So for us to try to institute that is going to be like going against the tide. It's one we probably won't succeed at, except through repeated efforts. So when we talk about self-pres habits that we're trying to develop, again, one at a time, one of the encouragements is, let's just say, one of my goals is to start doing self-pres tasks. So if you're a low self-pres, you may be okay with leaving the dishes for 4 or 5 days. That's easy for me to do. I just notice, oh, they need to be done. Okay, well, I'll get to it, because self-pres tends to be my weakest. But part of the work is to start doing, let's say I decide that I want to have a clean sink. Now, for people who have strong self-pres, they're going, what? This isn't even a problem. But if you have low self-pres, it can be a problem. So the encouragement is, whatever your self-pres goal is, to try to do it the first thing in the morning while before your life gets complicated. So I can do the dishes first thing in the morning, or I can go to the gym and work out first thing in the morning. Or, if I'm, again, there's only about 15 self-pres tasks that I could add to my list. I'm only doing one at a time. So let's just say it's self-preservation. And what I do, I get up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, etc., and then I do the dishes. And then I take a star, like we did in grade school, and I put it on the calendar so I can see that I finished my task on this Friday morning. There's a star. It says, good for you, you did the job. And so I want to make sure that this particular calendar is in visual sight, that I see it on a regular basis, because that will remind me, keeping in mind that whatever my self-pres task is going to be really easy to forget and to put last on the list. So let's just say, again, self-pres tasks, keep track of finances, balance your checkbook, get an accountant. So the question becomes, what kind of a habit do I need to set up so that I get to this specific task of tracking finances? So it's suggested that you pick a regular time every day that you sit down to look at this issue, and that also you have someone that you can call and check in with once a week just to see if you're sticking with it. Because again, the tendency is, with self-pres stuff, it's like, oh, finances, let's see, it's 3:00 in the afternoon. I'd rather go read that incredible book I just started reading, or go watch that podcast, or whatever. So I'm trying to set up a time that I'm least tempted to move away from it. And I'm including an accountability friend. I'm not trying to do any of these tasks all by myself. So an accountability friend, that means that somebody who checks in on me once a week, twice a week, saying, how's it going? And I know what I did for a period of time when I was trying to develop a habit of writing, is I would have my accountability friend call me up at 8 in the morning and say, are you on your writing? And that kept me on it many times. But occasionally I found myself at the mall at the ungodly hour of 8 in the morning going, what am I doing here? Oh, I'm avoiding my self-preservation task that I took on. So there's a lot of practical sort of habits that center around self-preservation. Some people, for instance, exercise is a big one. And if you have low self-pres, exercise just seems like such a pain in the neck. Why would anybody do it? I know I should do it. Well, if I've had a heart attack, then I'm inspired, right? The doctor said, if you want to live a little bit longer, you need to develop a habit. So low self-pres folks often find that they need to be in the company of other people when they exercise. If they take it on by themselves, they just can't remember to do it or don't feel the need to do it. It slips through their fingers like wind. So, the encouragement is, yeah, it's a good idea to be doing yoga if that's what you want, or lifting weights or running or biking, whatever. The question is, if you can't do it alone, get a buddy. Have an exercise buddy. So that's always current. Now, if you're able to pick up and start doing stuff, great. A lot of people will get a coach. They have an exercise coach. They go to the gym, and the coach puts them through the, whatever the routine is. But if I'm having to rely on myself, it makes it less likely. I still might be able to do it. And again, if you're so low self-presence such that you don't feel like exercising, that no big deal. There are some people who live for eternity and don't seem to need to exercise. I don't know how they do it. I think of Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones. I'm quite sure he never exercises. He just plays his guitar, right? So, it all depends on my priority. So a kind of funny one and simple one, a lot of times people with low self-res don't brush their teeth regularly, don't floss their teeth regularly, right? It's like, why? It's like something that just falls out of my memory bank. So again, the challenge is, okay, I've got a mirror in front of me. Can I put a small calendar up and put a star every time I remember and reward myself and let my partner know I'm trying to do this? Again, the problem with self-pres activities, or whenever it's my blind spot, is the sense of urgency around it lasts about one day, right? Like, oh yeah, I should really do this. This makes sense. And I do it and I say, good for me. And then 3 or 4 days go by and I go, oh, I'm not doing it again. Well, I seem to be okay. My teeth aren't falling out. And then I go to the dentist and I find out I've got a bunch of cavities, and then maybe I'm motivated. That certainly has helped me. So again, these are a list of sort of the doable tasks that self-pres activities include. And I have here, allow a friend, coach, or coach to hold you accountable. Talked a little bit about that. Try to have visual results of your efforts in front of you somewhere, whether it's in your office or someplace you go to regularly. And you might want to consider this too, that wherever you put up this visual aid, that for low self-pres people, it only takes about 3 days before the aid is on the wall, but I don't see it anymore. It blends into the wall. Like, oh, this is a nice decoration. Oh, there's a star. I wonder what that's for. So it's like I have to really be conscientious around this. I'm going to forget, and I'm going to need to probably start over again. So it's really important not to bring a heavy-handed inner critic to this task, because that will annihilate your spirit, in which case you won't have to deal with it at all. So if you're really not wanting to learn this, then just bring that inner critic and have them annihilate you, and then go on your way. But again, these are not life and death sorts of things, and not everybody's motivated to create a change. But let's just say, you have the habit, a low self-pres habit, of leaving your clothes around, right? So I've got an exercise bike in our living room, which is so excellent for hanging clothes on. I'm passing through, I can take one shirt, put on another, off I go. And my wife's going, oh my God, there's a closet. Have you heard of closets before? Closets. Yeah, it's a concept I'm familiar with, but well, right over there, go over there, put it on a hanger. That's what works. And so again, the challenge is, what can I set up as a memory system? Because there's something, even for self-pres folks, where they actually feel comforted by being able to see all their stuff. A strong self-pres is going, this does not, nurture me at all. But a low self-pres, it's like, oh, I see where all my stuff is. There's all these papers here, and there's these clothes here, and laundry stuff I got to get. So there's some, it's just a kind of strange survival habit. Maybe back in the days of the caveman and woman, it had a function. But in this day and age, if both of you have low self-pres, you're going to have a chaotically messy house. And you've probably been to a home like that, where there's just stuff everywhere, always, and they're as cheerful as can be. So not to minimize that. But the challenge becomes how do I remember? How do I remember? So let's just say we're talking about the habit of exercise. The tendency can be when someone starts an exercise program to go, I'm going to go work out aerobically for 45 minutes and I'm going to lift weights for 30 minutes. Well, how long do you think that lasts? About 2 days until my body's so sore I can't move. So I always encourage people with these self-pres tasks to start with something small and doable. So with exercise, the first one might be to get my shoes on to go to the gym, step my foot inside the gym, and just work out for 10 minutes, to just get in the habit of showing up and working on a machine or weights or swimming or whatever it is. Go to the recreational pool, say, okay, for today, I'm going to just be in this pool for 15 minutes. And you may find as you're doing your swimming that you like it and you last longer, but you're not defeating yourself by, feeling like I only did it for 15 minutes. So there needs to be a lot of compassion. And in some ways, you almost have to trick these instincts so that they work for you, because the tendency is to do them too hard, too fast, to push too fast, and then lose the whole thread of it. So some good books for holistic health exercise. Younger Next Year is a great book and journal. Hire a coach, blah, 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 blah. And then so just coming down here, things that can help in terms of getting your awareness online. Things need to be visible. We talked about that. If you've got a date book, with what I'm doing today, keep it in front of you. If you make lists, keep that list visible. If you're like me, I get a list and then a half an hour goes by and the list has disappeared. How is that possible? Oh, it's under 15 other pieces of paper that I dropped on top of it. So I have to I have to remember, keep the list visible and current. Don't use it as a hammer against yourself. And then if you can, with your list or your date book, you have a place that you keep it regularly. You know that, okay, I'm going to go look at my date book. Where is it? I think that thing has wheels. It moves around on my desk, and now it's over here, and then it's over here, and then it's under something. So part of the discipline is like, okay, I'm going to have one spot for it that's home. Is that easy to do? Well, for myself as a low self-pres, it's not easy. I forget all the time, but I have to start over again. So these are just, again, there's a lot of different self-pres tasks to learn. I want to just open it up for some questions and just see how this is landing, because it's a lot of material, but I want the simplicity of the approach to be what's most important.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Katya, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Very interesting. I have a problem. Well, many, but one of them is I make lists and lists and lists and lists. I don't know why. I don't like it. And as you say, the list, I put it in a sheet. Always, when I make it only a sheet of paper, it gets lost.
Yes.
I cannot find it. And it's not helping me. It's like making me anxious. I don't know if I'm looking for anxiety. And it's wonderful what you said of not punishing me. The idea is not to punish myself. That's what I want to ask you and share. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So lists, I was encouraged by my self-preservation dominant coach. He says, when you make a list each morning, you have one list of the 3 things that you want to get done. And then if there's another list, you put it someplace else, but you only go for 3 at a time. And he said, here's what tends to happen. You do those 3 things and you start to get some momentum. So you add a 4th. Say, oh, okay, I can do a 4th. And if I'm done for the day, if that's all I can do, then that's fine. What I do is I put out a sheet of paper, and whenever I do a task, I write it down. And then at the course of the day, maybe I have 10 things I've written down, but I'm not trying to knock everything off. I'm just trying to notice what's the next thing I did, and just to write it down, to slow it down so I have some way of seeing it and remembering that I did it. Because that's the other thing around low self-pres is be easy to be really spacey around details, and keeping track of lists is one of the things that I can lose track of really easy. So I try to keep it visible and doable. So in terms of to-do lists, he often would say, do the one that is hardest first and then choose two others. And so maybe you have a list of 20 things that need to get done, and, for the rest of your life, whatever. There's something about low self-pres where they make these gigantic lists, like, I'm going to just tackle this thing. And then, after one or two failures, that's it. And the list disappears. And then they make another one 3 or 4 days later. And it'd be kind of like a habit. So I would encourage you to have that larger list and then take 3 and put them in another separate piece of paper and really try to make that your goal for the day. Again, not beating yourself up if you don't get it done. So that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Michael. Becca, go ahead.
So anyway, what you're describing really fits me to a T.
Mhm.
But what's interesting is I have identified that I'm very high self-pres because I spend a lot of time on safety and comfort, safety like and previewing things that might happen and trying to prevent bad outcomes. So can
Are you a type 6?
No, I'm a 4, but sometimes
Okay.
I think I'm a 6.
Well, I
I'm
just
pretty
some of
sure
this.
I'm a 4.
Yeah. Well, then trust that. Don't take my word for it. So if you do some self-pres stuff, great. That's awesome. It's just a question of, do I want to try to work on an area that is a weak spot for me? And because if you look at the 3 zones, we've got self-pres, sexual, social. There's 3 zones in each one of those instincts, and we're going to have a blind spot in each instinct. So the question is this important enough for me to put a little extra time in? And so it sounds like you do a lot of the self-pres stuff naturally. And the next challenge would be when you try to add one that you don't do naturally, what happens?
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Becca. Thank you, Michael. Hey, I want to say real quick, Michael, too, that I love the idea of working out or exercising or whatever with someone else. But
Mhm.
something in me, one of 2 things happens. Either I get really irritated because people are telling me what to do, or I turn very competitive. So,
Oh,
right, if they're lifting 50 pounds, I have to lift 55. And it's like, so I even though I love the idea of that, I know historically, at least, I can't do it because I screw myself up all the time.
well, so good to notice that. And it would be important to try to find somebody who's sort of at your level of fitness so you don't get into competition, or get a coach.
Somebody who's so much far above me that I couldn't possibly do it. And then, yeah, I
No,
need this big burly
you could
guy.
do
I need a
that too.
weightlifter. I need,
Yeah, and then also easy does it. If you notice you're starting to compete, do your best to let go of it and just be with the next set of weights you're doing. But I think having a coach, or that's where, so you've got that competitive edge, and part of your challenge would be to tolerate it and not push yourself into listening to it so much, and that's not easy to do.
okay, thank you. Joy, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
I have a comment and a question.
Okay.
The comment is the here again, I see your big message to all, and that is one of be easy, be gentle, be compassionate with ourselves. And you've taught me that, and I want to say thank you to you.
Welcome.
Kind of like my share. Um, it seems to me, and I don't know if this is true, that there would be more twos that have a blind spot of self-pres than, or maybe nines also. I don't know. Does it go with Enneagram type or not? Not at all.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And so that's the short answer.
Yeah.
I've seen self-present all of the types, and type 2s, there's So Martha Stewart's considered to be a self-pres too. And there's more of those floating around than meets the eye. And, so they're everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, self-pres for me is definitely my blind spot, and I have had the hardest time. You know, I want all to be good at all these things that you have here, but really being consistent. It's taken me 30 years to get a morning routine. You know,
Yeah.
I'm
Well, you point to something that's really real. It's like a gravitational pull against doing the low self-pres activity. And I know people who've been teaching this for 40 years, and they'll say this, what I do is I hire other people to do the blind spot for me because I just haven't been able to incorporate it into my life. So again, that's why I think it's important to only choose one thing to work at a time, and to keep in mind that just your effort to be present with that one thing is doing something to expand your presence and awareness, and that there's a good side effect. And the other thing is that it usually doesn't feel that good to do. That's the problem with blind spot activities. It's like, this isn't very fulfilling. I've got a dominant instinct that's sexual. I can have a lot more fun there, or social, whatever. But so part of it's like enduring, making the task short enough, short enough that you can endure it, and breaking it up into bite-sized pieces. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, and then I just one other comment of being such a low self-pres my whole life, and feeling when I didn't have very good self-esteem, so less than hiring people to help me. Now that's what I do. I do hire all these tasks that I don't want to do. That's what I end up doing now.
Yeah, and that's there's no rules against that. It can be very helpful. I'm so grateful when I've got my wife is dominant self-pres, so I'm so grateful to be with her because she keeps the house livable. And when I find that when I actually get to a self-pres task and I finish it, there's a feeling of well-being. I might have been miserable getting there, but afterwards there's something that's very settling and very healing. So it's something to experiment with.
Thank you. Thank you, Joy. Thank you. Michael, seriously, I can hire someone to exercise for me? I'm just kidding. Wouldn't that be great? I would love that. I would do
That's
it this
one that
second.
you're on your own.
Yeah,
But
I'm
look,
on my
I know
own.
we have more questions come back. I should go to the next instinct.
Okay, so Lori and Dave or Kim, we will catch you on the rebound here.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Go ahead.
So let's go to the next instinct, the sexual instinct, which is love of intensity, change, unpredictability, breaking routines of habit. So there's different theories on this, all of which you're going to have to find out what works for you, of course. And so just some sort of fun ones that change the radio station to something with a beat, something wilder. So if you notice that you tend to listen to music that's more mellow and sedate, the encouragement is to start using some music that gets you in your body. So I always think probably one of the best things to go do is take an African dance class, because then you're in, you've got the drums, you've got the thumping on the floor with your feet. There's just this whole kind of energetic feel that's just really fun and expressive. And, a lot of times the low sexuals will go, that is the last place you will find me. I will go watch. And I say, well, watching is better than doing nothing, right? But again, it's like, well, how is it that I notice, if this is my blind spot, how I resist anything that stirs my intensity? Now, you may be happy with that, which is great. I mean, I met a woman who said, I'm low sexual, and I'm at one with that. I feel good about it. I don't need to be stimulated. I said, well, then there's nothing to be done. That's great, and you have a place that feels good to you. But in terms of sort of stimulating the edge of things, one that's often an interesting one for dominant sexuals is they usually tend to really like to make eye-to-eye contact with people. And, if you sit across from somebody for 3 minutes and just simply gaze into their eyes, there's a certain intensity that comes with that for some folks is the last thing on earth they will ever do again. I mean, but if you're a dominant sexual, which I am, gazing into other people's eyes and just being with them present somehow lights me up. Well, why? Well, who knows? I'm wired that way. So again, there's something around the intimacy in that, the vulnerability and letting someone look into your face. So you can practice this at different places in small ways. You're going through the checkout line at Target, and you make it a point just to make eye contact for a second with the cashier. Just doesn't have, you're not going to freak her out with a 5-second gaze or freak him out with a gaze, but you're just making contact or making eye-to-eye contact. Just a small thing you can do to develop more tolerance around intensity. So dance to music with a heavy beat, blah, 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 blah. Now follow through on your excitements and inspirations. This is an order that the reason anyone is even looking at this is because they can't follow through on their excitements and inspirations, right? So the question then becomes, how do I keep my feet to the floor? If I've got something that matters to me, let's just say, one of the things that's a big encouragement is for people to begin working with their creativity. And that means, if you're going to deal with creativity, you're stepping into the unknown because you don't know what you're going to create. And the challenge can be, how do I show up for it? Well, I know what some people do is they take a class, they take an art class. If I've got an art class, I'm going to be sitting in the chair. I may not like it that much, but at least I'm showing up. Or I take a poetry class, or I take a singing class, or I take a dance class, something that gets me moving out of my comfort zone. And again, a lot of folks find if they do it with others, it's easier. Not always the case. So then the question really becomes, do I notice what turns me on? Is there a way that I start to feel an attraction towards things and then move away from it? And so the challenge would be to start for 1 week, just to notice what were the things that turned me on that I didn't take action on. So maybe I take an inventory at the end of the day and go, okay, was there something that moved me? But then my inner critic said, oh, that's not for you, that, you'll never be good at that, whatever the story is, or that inner critic that's competitive, like, oh, look better than you. And you just begin to notice after a week, what were the areas of interest that showed up for me? And with that, what is one of those areas I can invest a commitment in next week and have a friend coach to remind me I've made this commitment and it's going to be small enough that I don't, die of overstimulation, but it allows me to show up, even if it's just showing up for 15 minutes in the morning where I just do some free form drawing. Maybe that's one thing I want to do. There's a great writer, Natalie Goldberg, who wrote a book called Writing Down the Bones. And she also wrote a creativity book on how to start stepping into expressing your creativity. And of course, I can't remember the name of the book, but it's akin to The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, where, you just start developing a habit of maybe you journal for 15 minutes in the morning, or maybe for 15 minutes in the morning, you sing. You put on music that you like and you just give yourself room to express singing for the fun of it. Or one of the assignments I challenge people to do who have this low sexual energy is for 5 minutes a day, put a song on that you love, that inspires you to move, and to do it in the privacy of your own home, because the tendency will be, if other people are watching, to shut down. There's something about the low sexual energy that creates a kind of inhibiting force in people where they don't want to be seen being irregular or spontaneous or, doing anything that sort of draws attention. There's a way they kind of hold their energy back. So here you are. I remember the person who taught me dancing said, I want you to put some music on that's almost impossible to not move to, and to stand and listen to it for 5 minutes and then to cut loose for 5 minutes and just see what it feels like to just start expressing spontaneously your creative energy. Because again, all of this creative energy comes through the sexual energy. Are you aware of habits that deaden you. Okay, just think about that. I'm sure there are quite a few people, myself included, from time to time that, 7 o'clock comes around and I deaden myself by watching a movie. Now, there's a lot of great movies out there and they're coming at us faster than ever. But what I notice energetically is it's a way I just kind of put myself to sleep. And there's nothing wrong with going to sleep, but at 7 in the evening, it's a little bit too early. So it's in, notice, is it food that I use to kind of deaden my inspiration? What is it that I do that steers me away from feeling my aliveness? Because this is all the sexual energy, just feeling my aliveness, my presence, my, my juiciness, my ha-cha-cha, whatever it is that, all you have to do is go to my wife teaches a Montessori school, and when the kids come in, they are in their aliveness. They're like, we're here. What are we going to do? Let's go do it. And that's all the sexual aliveness energy. So the challenge is, what is it that I do where I tamp down my energy? So let's say you decide to be really brave and you go to a dance party, right? And they're playing all different kinds of music. And the challenge is to notice there's something in me that wants to move to this, and there's something else that says, hell no, I can't do that. It's going to be too embarrassing. Oh my God, they'll see me and think I'm the worst dancer on the planet. So that's where I start to challenge myself. I say, okay, for 10 minutes, or excuse me, for 10 seconds, I'm just going to let my body go, and then I'm going to stop. I'm going to give myself permission to just experiment with it at my own pace, as if I were learning dance for the first time. Or maybe I'm just starting to dance for the first time, particularly creative dance that doesn't have a structure to it. So play, do things like a kid that you've stopped doing, be spontaneous. Now, again, you can't just command yourself to do that, right? Because if I'm not spontaneous, there's something inside of me. A lot of times the low sexuals will say, it feels like if I get too big, then I'm going to get rejected. If I'm seen too much, I'm going to get rejected. And this can be type 9s, 6s, 4s, 2s, even self-pres 3s cannot like this whole thing of moving and showing my body and being, creative. So with a low sexual, again, it's good to have friends along that encourage me and cheer me on and say, okay, Michael, let's do it. Let's have some fun with this. We're with you all the way. We love you. We're not going to reject you. We won't throw you into the pits of hell if you look bad. Let's do it. And so you have people who can cheer you on, which can be very helpful. So let's just go down here a little bit. Make it fun, whatever you do. And again, what you're going to notice in any of these activities that you're trying to relax into is your inner critic's going to be there loud and clear going, you're the last person that should even try this. I mean, ultimately, this is the inner critic of the low sexual. You have no charisma or energetic flow or attractiveness. So why would you even want to get out in front of people because you're such a drone? And that's, again, the challenge is, how do I start listening to my body when it wants to move, as opposed to my inner critic head message, which says, you're a drone, you're not attractive, you have no magnetism, this dancing is for someone else, okay? So again, it helps to have a coach, a friend, someone who really cares about you, who, when you actually do come out of your, your fearful shell, they're going, right on, that was great, keep doing it. So 3 main points. Do things that awaken your senses. Listen, taste, touch. Only one at a time per week. All right. It's easy to start trying to do 2 or 3 or 4. There's a section here on, how do I make my body into a pleasure vehicle? That might be interesting for some of you. Some good books on how to do that. Again, these are challenging sorts of things to enter into. So number 2, notice attraction and be honest with yourself about it, that you do feel attraction towards certain things, that you want to do them. Maybe it's writing, maybe it's playing an instrument for the first time. Will I give myself the opportunity to take lessons? Get in touch with how much you're saying no, no, no to life. And even that one alone, if you begin to notice how often you say no to that first urge you have, that alone can start building up a kind of motivation to step through it. And, and you may have to just suffer with noticing, boy, I just shut myself down all the time. It just feels like, feels like if I actually step into these things that actually move me, what's going to happen to me? Well, I'm going to die, of course. And that's really the truth of the matter for the low sexuals. If I step into this, certain death awaits me. So what it is that is supporting, what is supporting in you, if you hear the voice, you might not like it, then just do it. So again, there's a ton of suggestions, all of which, if you do more than one at a time, will sidetrack you into infinity. So let's just see if any questions come up for people based on these.
Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions on this one?
Going, holy smokes, no, that's going to be too painful. Okay.
Go ahead, Becca.
Becca, I can't see you. You're doing a low sexual response to. There we go.
Sorry, I just woke up. So anyway, oh shoot, no, what was it?
Were you going to dance for us?
What's that?
Were you going to dance for us?
Oh, actually I love to dance, so I probably could, but I won't. I won't do that right now. Um, uh, so I'm wondering when you talk about do one at a time,
Mhm.
if you have a really big desire to really have this infuse your life more, how do
Yeah.
you, because my tendency is all or nothing with things, and
Mhm.
I'll just take it on and then it's too much. So how do you, I mean, one at a time for how long? And then adding a new one? How does that, how do you do
Well,
that?
it's a great experiment, but first off, if you're inclined to try to do it all at once, I encourage you to do that to see how long it lasts. And you go, oh, well, it lasted 2 days, I give up. So then to try with this idea, and this comes from the Gurdjieff work, which I've been involved in for many years, which is, as my teacher says, everyone has a habit of making too many aims at a time. So what we do with the Gurdjieff work is we take one aim and we stick with it for a week, and then we let it go and we take a new one. So they're always kind of rotating them. And what starts to happen is that sometimes these week-long projects start to catch and we start to end up, showing up for things that we ordinarily didn't. But there's something about keeping it simple. Okay, this week, I'm going to mark on the calendar when I sit down and meditate for 5 minutes. And if I meditate for more than 5 minutes, I give myself 2 stars. But it's going to be there in front of me, in the kitchen. When I walk by, I see the stars. I only choose that one goal. And then if I'm got some momentum, I stick with it for another week. But it's always around not spreading myself into doing 2 at a time. Now, if you do 2 at a time and you succeed, hallelujah. But usually, what do we say? A habit takes about 25 days to develop. And so it's really this whole project of working on the low instinctual variant is very humbling. You will be humbled by it. I'm humbled by it every week, how elusive, how it slips out of my hands. So again, not being hard on yourself is really important.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Is there another question coming up here?
Yeah, so Lori, go ahead.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for this. I am still struggling trying to determine which instinct is my strongest. I don't know if you have any quick things you can tell me to help figure that out. But both of these so far, well, particularly, I'm a 9. So the self-pres one, you would think that I would lean towards that. But I tell you, your list, I mean, every one of those things were things I need that I could use. But I'm, oh gosh, I'm sorry. I'm just losing my train of thought.
They're right. I lost mine the other day.
You're so kind. I Yeah, it's just the whole I guess comes back to the habits. Setting the habits for me is incredibly hard. Your examples of, I do it for a couple days and, then it's gone. I had a good thing going, doing a little weekly calendar. I had it open and I would write to-dos each day and carry forward what I didn't do. Did that for a few months, did great.
Oh, awesome.
All of a sudden it's gone. And
Yes. Well,
yeah.
so it's the old Zen saying, start at the beginning.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to start over again without beating yourself up. So anybody that's attempted to learn meditation and develop a habit will find that they get on a good flow. A couple months go by and then it's gone. And they don't even think about it for a couple months. Then they go, oh my God, I was meditating. What happened? So it's human. It's all human. And we're with these blind spot instincts, I have to humbly commit to starting over again all the time. I just start over. I try to keep it small and doable. And then, what we all get diverted by is our dominant, the thing that's most interesting, whether it's, whatever that dominant instinct is, it's a go-to that we've had since we were just little kids. So it's a force of nature, and it takes discipline, sense of humor. Like, part of the sense of humor could be, geez, I wonder how fast I can forget this aim this week. We'll see what happens. Oh, I mean, and I joke about that because when we make an aim in the chief work, maybe let's just say it's a kind of psycho emotional goal, which is notice what triggers you this week, right? And we all go, okay, I got that, wrote it down. And we come back a week later, and the teacher says, okay, how'd you guys do on your aims? And half the class will say, what was it? What was it? It was about noticing your activity. Oh, God, I forgot the second I walked out the door. So it's like that. If I can develop a sense of humor and just come back to it, and then I'm going to have a better chance of having maybe even longer periods where I sustain it.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me I'm human.
Yes.
I beat
Yes,
myself up and thank you for that. Appreciate your understanding and information. Thanks.
absolutely.
Thanks, Laurie. Thanks, Michael. Fiona, to you.
Yeah, hi there. Hi, Michael. And hi, everybody.
Hi, Fiona.
Hiya. Yeah, yeah, I think this one is my main one, I think, but I struggle with relationships, I think I'm a 4. And I get overwhelmed like with people, and I just get like overwhelmed. And anyway, was it yesterday? I went to a gallery with somebody, a new person, that was invited me for coffee, and I was going to a gallery, so I said, "Oh, would you like to come?" And then I made my ticket that I could bring people, because I know it's my blind spot, to add a person on. They could get in free.
Oh,
So,
cool.
I paid £40 more, and I said, well, I was thinking about that, so maybe we'll do that. So we did. But then after we would say together 4 hours, um, I need to decompress. And I could feel like this tension just sort of in my head, just the effort of being with somebody. So I don't know. It's just something that seems really weird saying this, but something that I'm trying, I just like, even at home, my husband's an 8, like he'll know to leave me alone, like just I got a cup of coffee that first thing, and it's like, oh, do you want some peace? Yeah, I want some peace, you know. But it's definitely my blind spot. And sometimes, I really like my own company, but then sometimes I do feel a bit lonely, I feel a bit alienated, because, that addict thing, I can talk to myself and say, well, I'm selfish and self-seeking and things like that. And I know it's a blind spot, and I should widen my net, to hopefully some healthy friends,
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're paying attention to it, and so there was a number of themes in there. The one that stood out in the beginning was this sense that I've been with somebody for 4 hours and I'm feeling overwhelmed. And that's pretty much a type 4-ish sensitivity around picking up on other people's vibrations and sort of getting overwhelmed and needing time to be alone and kind of clear myself out. So I could respond to that. The others were, I'm not sure what the question was within the others.
What's the question? Is there a question? Well, I don't know, is that normal? I suppose because the person I was with was a new person, somebody from a meeting that asked me to go coffees before, you know. And usually I'm off doing my own thing because it just like calms my nervous system, just being by myself or whatever. I just like
Sure.
being by myself. But
Yeah.
this time I did, and I bought an art ticket, an extra ticket. But they were happy to carry on. You know, I walked them to the station so they could go home so I could go on my own bit because they were unfamiliar with that part of town. And he said, "Oh, well, we can hang out a bit more, you know, like." And then I didn't answer straight away, and then because I thought, "Oh my God, this is not what I expected." You know, I took him to the station, and so then I
Yeah,
said,
you're supposed to get on the
"Yeah."
train and take off. I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly. So then that shame thing, and like, is this normal trying to handle this relationship business? You know, I'm 60 next year, but still like trying to learn these things. And I said, no, I think I need a bit downtown now.
Oh,
Downtown
good for you.
now.
Good for you.
Yeah,
You
so,
took
you
you took
know,
care of yourself. That's great. Yeah.
yeah. But I thought
So,
no other people probably just had hanged out for a bit more and like, but I just
well,
think
you
you need
could
to calm
last long.
down.
Yeah, everybody has a different tolerance, and if I don't pay attention to that, then I start to get really antsy, and I'm not able to stay present with whoever I'm with. So I just say, "Be gone," and then they're gone.
So it's like growing this little area, but
Yeah,
you've got to be realistic as well. If that's not your strong go-to, you know, you can play with it, but you
you can
can't
play
just
with it,
take
right?
it
You can play
and
with it,
like
but try
do
not to
that.
torture yourself with it. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Thank
So,
you, Fiona. Thank you,
how
Michael.
many, Cheryl, how many questions do we have floating around?
We
Right.
have 3 more people.
Okay, so let me finish with the social instinct, and then we can. So hold on to that question, and let's get through this. And you'll have all of these. I'm going to send these to you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Social instinct has everything to do with my ability to team up with people, to attend with groups, to be a part of a group movement, to feel a sense of a connectivity to my own niche of people and just to people in general. And when people have a blind spot, there's a sense of just feeling like I'm not really drawn to this kind of team effort sort of thing. I'm go solo. I like going solo. And if I'm put in a team situation, I feel uncomfortable, feel like I'm not sure I'm likable. I'm not sure I like you. I'm not sure which one's going to be stronger. So the challenge becomes, how do I commit? How do I create community for myself so I'm not living just totally solo? And, you know, if you've been around 12 steps, which a lot of you have, I know I've been for many years, you know, joining a 12-step group is really a social instinct development. And there are those who are really comfortable with being in a group in 12 steps, and there's others who it's an act of will just to get up and show there and tolerate it and feel a sense of I don't really connect, but I'm here. I know I should be. So the question becomes, you know, are you the survival part of this is, do I have a community of people I can rely on for my own spiritual, emotional growth and transformation? So, and the big barrier is the sense that I'm not really liked here, and I'm not really sure I'm going to like you. It could go either way, so we'll see what happens. So the encouragement is, before you go into a room, visualize that others will enjoy and value your company. Try to learn to focus on other people's needs and words. So my son is a low low social. And when he joins a group, he's about as mute as anybody could be. But if I can get him to start talking, he has all sorts of interesting things to talk about. But the one thing that he doesn't know how to do is to say, well, how are you doing today? Or what was your experience? Or how are you feeling right now? It's like it's not a part of, you know, these are all kind of communication cues that invite people in to connect with us. You know, tell me your story. You know, the social instinct at its best is I want to hear your story. Give me your whole story. I want to hear about your life and, you know, the highs and lows. So little small things you can do when dealing with service people, make contact, be aware of them, and thank them. Or, you know, you go to, let's say you're in a 12-step group that's a live group, is you become a greeter. You say hello to people when they come in. You make contact. You make contact. You take small efforts. You're not, you know, when you're a greeter at an AA meeting or an OA meeting or a FA meeting or whatever it is, all you're doing is saying hello and making connection. You're not forming a lifetime relationship. This isn't the sexual instincts area, right? We're just saying hello, nice to see you. Hello, nice to see you. Help a social person. Hostess at their party. Be a volunteer. So volunteering is another one, you know, go to the soup kitchen, start working there, be a part of a small group of people supporting the homeless. You know, volunteer at a drug rehab, be someone who supports people in early recovery. Let's see, what else we want to say here. Okay, so the strong social networking person keeps track of his or her people, right? The social dominants that I know have a list of emails that they follow up on. They connect with people. They call them at their birthdays. They call them at anniversaries. They stay connected in some kind of communication, communing. So the challenge for the low social, which would be my son, is to remind him that once every 11 months, he should probably give us a call and tell us what's going on, right? And he's like clueless. Like, like, why would I do that? Why does anybody do that? And if you get him talking, he's great. He's smart. He's articulate. But it's like the instinct, the social instinct, which is this instinct to stay connected to loved ones, is almost doesn't exist. The only time it really shows up is if he's in the state of an emergency. And part of the reason is he doesn't get a lot of comfort out of connecting. It's hard for him to settle and connect and be with people. And his ability to kind of articulate conversation that allows it to flow is not his strong point. That ability to reach out to the other, you know, if you think about the social instinct, I can sense what other people are thinking or feeling or how their body is communicating a message, and I can speak to that. Like I can really feel your discomfort right now, or I really hear the excitement in your voice, or I really like that idea that you just gave so energetically. There's a way with the social instinct that we reflect the other, and that draws them in. When I've got a blind spot there, it's like it's just not a part of my storyline. I just sit there quiet and mute and wonder how people get along and talk about things the way they do. So here's some, you know, a simpler one is try having a pet, something that can thrive under your care, right? You can parent a pet and make a connection, take care of their needs, but make sure you're attending to them. If you've got a little social, you know, it's important to remember to feed them on a regular basis and take them out, you know, the whole routine. But it's a way of working that muscle. If you want to make yourself jump into the fire really quickly, do a group cruise, right? Sign up for a group cruise and interact with people. Well, low social folks, that's the last thing they want to do is join a group cruise and interact. So I would say bring along a best friend. So at least if things aren't going well, you can rely on them to do all the talking. That's what I tend to do. Answer the phone, get curious about the other, et cetera, et cetera. So, and this is another one that is really, you know, I just alluded to it with my son, is maintain contact with friends, send cards, emails, birthday reminders, etc. The other thing that I think could be really powerful is to try to find a role in your community that keeps you involved, whether it's a social movement, whether it's a political movement, an environmental movement, but something that has you showing up with a group that has an altruistic goal to it, or a goal they all agree upon. And it can be being in part of a church community can be really awesome. There's a lot of different ways you can intermix with people and form some alliances. Okay, and then just some experimental things. Take one person you normally wouldn't feel much connection to and see if you can find some human connection. Well, again, this is like the opposite skill of the social blind spot person. This is social strong folks. They love to do this, right? But the challenge is, can I start making contact with people that I don't know or I'm not drawn to, and just simply start a conversation like, "Hi, my name's Michael, and just wanted to say hello to you and welcome you." Let's say I'm at an AA meeting, and there's somebody there that I don't know, and maybe I even feel an aversion to. If I'm really present, I may go sit next to that person and say, "Hey, I'm Michael. What brings you here? Where are you from? It's good to see you." And, just chat them up a bit. That's all the social instinct, making, a connection. And it's just good practice if you've got the low social instinct. So let's see. The other thing that's interesting is noticing what are the assumptions I'm making about how people won't like me in advance, right? What assumptions am I making about the person, and who I think they are? Noticing in advance that I start to have maybe even kind of a catastrophic story, that if I go over and talk to these people, they're not going to be interested. They're going to think I'm not interesting, that I'm not likable, I'm not worth caring for or listening to. Again, this is, when we talk about this blind spot social instinct, I'm walking into my Achilles heel. And the Achilles heel is, I don't feel that I'm naturally likable, and I'm really expecting that you're going to reject me. So do I really want to try this exercise? Well, not really, because I already know the result. And the challenge is, how do I start getting the coaching I need, like a friend who's with me, where I let them know, this is my story on social instinct contacts. I think they don't like me. Join me in this engagement, and then afterwards we can debrief and just see what you saw. Well, did it appear they liked me? Do I not get the signals? And that's the other thing that's true for low socials, is when they're getting this, when people are giving them the signals that they're really likable and they're liked, it's like it's a blind spot. It goes right past them. It doesn't land. So that's where it can really help to have a good friend you trust, to stay at least a little bit alert to how your blind spot operates in such a strong way. So let's see, I want to do maybe one more. Act on your passion for the common good. Charitable giving, soup chicken. No, soup chicken. Yes, I would like some chicken for soup. I'm getting, isn't it time for lunch? I think it is. It helps to start with something local. Soup chicken. Oh boy, oh boy. So, here I am alone in my room, just entertaining myself. I hope some of this is bringing chuckles to yourself. So anyway, I offer help, let's say in the program, someone needs a sponsor or someone who's a good buddy. There's some other suggestions in here that you can read on your own, but I want to just take some questions and just see who's the next person with a question. Was it
Okay,
Katya?
so Carrie is next. Carrie is
Okay.
next. So go ahead, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a long-term friend, and it is turning out that when I act spontaneously, she shuts me down by criticizing me. And more lately, it's saying that she will, like the other day we went out to lunch, and I was talking to the wait person in a more spontaneous way, and she told me to stop. And if I didn't stop, she was going to ask for her check and leave. And so there's a degree of that she's doing abandonment stuff now, and I just feel so battered by her response to me, because she has been a really close friend for a number of years now, and now I really feel like it's my best interest to just stop seeing her, because it hurts me, and it takes me days to recover from the slings and arrows. So I just was wondering if you had some suggestions about how to proceed, with this breakup.
Well, I wonder if you feel comfortable enough when you're both in a calm state to reflect what you notice in terms of how she's changed. Because I'm guessing something's going on for her that's causing her to kind of act out against you and project out onto you. But from a social instinct standpoint, the social instinct person might say, I really hear you're upset with me. What's going on? Is there anything I'm doing that's bothering you? Or is there something we need to do to make you feel more comfortable? So I'm inquiring about the situation and trying to be a objective mirror, just saying, this is what I notice. It seems like you're impatient with me today, and I'm just wondering if something's changed or if I've done something that offended you, at least to inquire. And of course, if they're not healthy enough to take that in, then, you know, when in doubt, bring duct tape. I don't know. It's you know, it's challenging.
Yeah, it's actually been going on for a couple of years in
Oh.
different ways.
Hmm.
And most recently I've changed because I've left my marriage, and so I'm feeling myself even more so. And
Mhm.
you know, the expectation was that, you know, once I was more available, we could do more things together, and I have no desire to do much of anything with her anymore because I really feel harmed by her. And we have tried to talk, and it doesn't, I mean, basically what she's telling me is to stop, you know, that she wants things a certain way, and I'm just not willing to be stopped at this point in the small spontaneous ways that I'm acting, you know, present, you know. So
Well, it sounds like it is just an invitation to find to widen your friend circle and
right,
to find allies that really you're more in tune with.
right.
That would be my guess.
Yeah, and that's what I am doing. And but
Good.
it's you know, it's like I don't want to make an announcement, but you know, I think that I will quit extending um out to
Well,
her, and if she extends out to me, then I can make decisions at that point in time. But I think yeah,
I'm inclined to just to not push the river. If someone's giving that message that they're not wanting to be with me at the time, then I try to just hold them in my prayers.
yeah, that's what I'm doing, and I'm trying to get her out of my insides, you know, consciously removing her as much as I can, because you know she is, you know, it's inside me, and I'm trying to get her out. So
Yeah. Thank you. Okay,
yeah.
Katya. Is it Katya that's next?
Carrie, thank you, Carrie. Yeah, Katya to you, and then Dave or Kim is
Well,
next.
I want to say, Michael, I never thought the instincts could develop in what you're saying. There are some crazy AA groups in my country where the instincts, they tell you how horrible and how terrible those instincts are. You don't want to
Oh,
know about it. It's
oh.
a nightmare. What I want to say is, I am amazed. Exactly what you are saying is the answer of what I was experiencing yesterday. It's like something broke, I don't know the word, and opened. And now I can see where I have to go to with what you are telling us. And I want to thank you very much about that. I want to tell you I'm scared to death of all what you are saying. But something inside of me, as I was saying, that yesterday happened, is like, stop punishing yourself, live, do this, nothing is going to happen. Your inner child and your parts and all that stuff are waiting for this. Just don't give a shit. I don't know if that's the correct word, and enjoy life, you know? I want to
Yeah.
cry. Every time I go into this surrender school, I want to cry a little bit, but I am happy I am saying this, and thank you very much.
Yeah. And where are you calling from?
Mexico.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I muted myself. Okay, so Katya, thank you, Katya. Kim or Dave, whichever one of you raised your hand.
Yeah, hi, Michael.
Hi.
So Kim and I are, I guess, the example of opposites attract, because she's a strong self-preservation and I'm the sexual more dominant one. And we have, I guess, a verbal version of the gold star. So, and this is a tool we learned in Recovering Couples Anonymous, and it's a 10th type of 10th step check-in. So,
Okay.
and the way it goes, we do this every morning. We didn't invent this; we learned it there. But so I will share with Kim 2 things you did yesterday that were helpful to the coupleship, which can be just things she did for herself or for us as a couple. And one thing that I did that was not helpful, and then we reverse that. So, and it often is kind of congratulating each other on getting out of our comfort zone in this. So, like for Kim, I might say, you went with me on a trip to Mount Charleston to have lunch, and you went to this meeting with me that you weren't sure you wanted to really go, but you came anyway. And then my thing that I did that was not helpful was I forgot to do the dishes, which is one of my chores I've agreed to do every day, and I still forget to do it, even though that's our agreement that I will do that every day. But then she will reverse it and say, well, okay, but you did go to the dentist and get your teeth cleaned,
Oh,
and and you went swimming and got your exercise.
awesome.
And so it's since we do it every day, instead of a visual gold star, it's like verbal gold stars, and that's been
Awesome.
really
Yeah.
super helpful to both of us.
Beautiful.
Just wanted to share
Well,
that.
yeah, and I just encourage people to experiment with different things that work for them, and that sounds like a really working well for you guys. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Dave. Francine, to you.
Hi. Good morning.
Good
All
morning.
right. I love that, day. That is definitely my love language. Verbal gold stars. But
Yeah.
yeah, Michael, I'm a 9. And of course, when I'm overwhelmed or I start to disengage,
Mhm.
and especially if I'm at home, like this week, I took a staycation, and I had all these plans to do all my self prep, my self prep things, and also have some fun. Got a little bit of fun things in there. Haven't really touched the self prep, but I kind of came into this. I find myself in this loop sometimes, and I've always done this. I never knew what it was, but the disengaging, and then I will just go into my movies or whatever it is. I'm just by myself on my own, disengage in the movies, and sometimes I'm even angry if somebody's like keep calling me and want to talk, that kind of thing, because I'm just really shutting down. And
Yeah.
and so I get into this loop. So overwhelm will take me into this loop. And then when I come out of it, I know I gotta go back to work next week, Monday. So I got to get myself out of this, get back into the routine of things, which I have no problem with. But those things will drop off when I'm in that overwhelm or I disengage. So come back into it. And guess what? I'm just overwhelmed again because all the things I didn't get done. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the loop. And this is definitely one of those things I want I don't want to live this way any longer. So I don't know if there's a question there, but the struggle is the loop I find myself in when I begin to disengage with whatever is happening in my life, conflict,
Okay.
whatever, and especially when I have free time and nothing scheduled, I really get into it.
Yeah. So it seems to me the question or the challenge is
What do I do? How do I?
How do you, when you start to fall into the loop,
Mm-hmm.
how do you pull yourself out of it so you don't get
Yes.
lost there? Because it sounds like it's a pretty cozy, comfortable loop, movie
Mm-hmm.
watching, and and we all have different things that numb us. And so you mentioned something that can be very numbing, and again, there might be something to be said about enlisting a friend who gives you a call. If you're starting to go into the loop, is to call up and make it hey, let's go out for coffee. Do something that's counter to sitting on the couch and watching, binge watching or whatever it is you do when you're watching movies. It sounds like you get caught in a kind of a solo activity of kind of disappearing and pushing the world away, and those kinds of patterns are really powerful, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I'm always mentioning the idea of having a friend that you let know that this, whether it's a sponsor or whatever, who you can talk to kind of counter the gravitational pull of that pattern, because you probably had that pattern for quite a while, and these
Yes.
patterns develop when we're just little ones. They have a life of their own.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. I had it a long time and I did not notice or have words for it. I just knew I hated to be in it
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it was always a struggle to get out, but I didn't have words for it until now, until we started
Awesome.
doing. Yeah, so thank you for
Awesome.
that.
And that will help.
Okay.
And, again, just keep noticing it, watching it. Don't beat yourself up over it. And
Mm-hmm.
again, if you can enlist a friend that you trust who gives you a call and says, "Are you in the loop right now?" And you say,
No.
"I am,
Yes.
and I don't want you to bother me."
That is probably where I would be too. I would probably be angry that I got to answer the phone because they're going to keep calling me.
All right.
All right, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Francine. Thank you, Michael. Linda L, to you.
Um, almost, I guess it's afternoon here. Thank you so much for this. I am so intrigued by all these. When first hearing about the instincts, I was thinking, oh, I think I must be social. And then when you were going over the strengths, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm more self-preservation. But then when you were talking about the weak spots of the self-preservation, it was like, whoa, I don't know. Maybe I'm not good at any of this stuff.
Well, just something to keep in mind is if I look at the three zones in each of the instincts, at least one of those zones is weak or average. So it
Okay.
doesn't, so we have, so part of the work is just noticing what are the zones that I need to work on if I want to.
Okay. Yes, yes. And I can see where, through different, in my recovery that I've worked on different things and have improved. But then,
Mhm.
it's, I got a dog and I stopped exercising, it's like, but I can see where, for me, doing things in a group is helpful for me. And, so yeah, I love all the tips on all the different areas. So I just wanted to say thank you. And maybe one of these days I'll kind of figure out what instinct I am. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. So I want to say too, remember that all three of the zones for all three of the instincts are out on recordings under the instincts course that is out on Surrender School. So if you missed those, you may want to go back and take a look at those. And then this is how to balance those basically, because some of them you'll go, yeah, I do that. And others you'll go, no, I don't, because of the three zones that are in that instinct, right? So
Yeah.
and
Right.
then a reminder that all of us have all three of the instincts because they're just human for us to have those. Just one is usually dominant, one is usually the least dominant, and then we have another one that we can access if we need to. All right, Becca, I see your hand is up. Michael, is there something you wanted to say? Go ahead.
Yeah. So the blind spot instinct often doesn't become more of a priority until there's a health crisis of some kind or something related to that zone that makes it more life and death. And then it's like, okay, I guess I don't have a choice. I can't negotiate with this blind spot anymore. And once, because the problem with the blind spot is we always have the tendency, myself included, to negotiate with it, and which ends up making it a little less important than my dominant instinct. And that's okay as long as it isn't threatening my life in some way. I mean, and the theory is the healthier that we get, the more present and less reactionary we become, the more we have access to the healthy expressions of the instincts. My experience has been that, for some people, they'll just say simply, and these are teachers like myself will say, my self-pres instinct is not hardwired into my brain. And so I got to use other people's brains for it. And that can be the conclusion that you may draw on a particular blind spot.
Thank you. Okay,
Mhm.
Becca, to you.
Richard, who I'm married to, and here, he and I took a year-long Enneagram training.
Mhm.
And when he talked about the instincts, he said that just because it's your dominant instinct doesn't mean that it's good, that you're good at it. And he indicated sometimes our dominant instinct, even though it was what was highly motivating to us, sometimes the dominant instinct was something we struggled with, and that the second instinct came a little easier and more naturally. Is that a concept that you work with, or you think that's accurate?
Well, in my experience, well, if you start reading different authors, you're going to see completely different approaches to the instincts. And so I'm just trying to present what I feel I have more hands-on experience with. So, and not saying it's a right opinion. The dominant instinct, what I notice if I'm not feeding it, is I start to not feel well, not feel very happy about my life. There's something, the dominant instinct, one of the dominant stories, again, not saying this is the correct way, is that the dominant instinct has something to do with something where it's kind of the master of our domain. This is where we have easy access. We go to it. We're inspired by it. It brings us something. We can overuse it because it feels too good. It's like it can be addictive in the sense that, let's say something's happened and I don't want to face a particular emotion. The dominant instinct, I can find something that feeds that particular instinct and inspires me and makes me feel good. So I have to be, from my standpoint, from the school I was trained in, it's the idea of noticing when is the dominant instinct working addictively. Let's say I'm a self-pres dominant. Under stress, what do? Do I go buy more furniture? Do I go buy more lawnmowers and more dishes and more, plates and make my house a bigger storehouse of self-pres things? If I'm a social instinct and I'm under pressure, what do? I go out and start connecting. I start volunteering too much. I over volunteer. When I work with social instinct dominant people, I often say, thou shalt not volunteer until you've checked in with me once a week, so you don't spread your network out too far. Because social instinct people just love to do that. They're good at it. People love them for it, but it also can mean they end up depriving themselves of other experiences that they need to have, like tend to their intimate relationships or take care of their self-pres needs. So I look at it from a standpoint of balance. Do people struggle with a dominant instinct? They can, if they've grown up in a culture that doesn't give room for it. I had one type 8 sexual dominant person, a woman who grew up in the deep South, and being expressive and big and being really present and alive wasn't really condoned when she was growing up as a little girl. So she had to work to heal that, but that is her dominant instinct. So there's different things that can occur that affect those instincts. So
Thank you, Michael. And Joy, and you'll be the last person to make a comment or a question. Go ahead, Joy.
Yes. So my self-confidence really affected my social instinct, which is my dominant instinct.
Mhm.
And so for someone, yeah, so now I'm like really into my social, but I think both the sexual and the self-pres, I would say the self-pres is a little lower, but
Mhm.
I know what to do now, but I feel like the that my social was, I think, even pressed below both of the, it was below growing up.
Mhm.
And I would say until my 50s. And
Mhm.
now I've come up and I'm able to network and use the social, but I do think, I've overdone it at times, especially as a two, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, so I just wanted to comment on that because yeah,
Mhm.
I don't think I was good at my dominant instinct. I think, yeah, and the other ones
Well, what was it,
contributed.
can you say, or are you comfortable saying, what was it that suppressed that instinct when you were growing up as a little girl?
Um, I think it's similar to a lot of my blind spots as a two.
Mhm.
Um, I, y- it- yeah, I had some like sexual abuse, and I had,
Mhm.
there's a lot of really confusing feelings when I wasn't getting cared for and things
Mhm.
like that. So
Mhm.
not feeling worthy or okay in
Mhm.
many social roles and reaching out and being social, not feeling worthy even of asking for help from others.
Yeah,
All of those things.
yeah, had an impact on you.
And now I look at this list and I'm like, oh yeah, all these things that you have are so easy for me. I want to do all of them on
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Well, it sounds like as you've done healing, emotional healing, that it's opened up access to that social instinct,
Yeah.
and that, yeah. So I think it's an important story to share because, in many ways, identifying, let's say when someone comes into recovery, usually their instinctual sensitivities are pretty crisscrossed and confused. And they got to get sober for a couple of years before they start to see, oh, here's my dominant instinct, here's my blind spot. And so I think our experiences affect this. If I've had 20 years of substance using, my instinctual harmony is going to be out of whack. And it may reflect the true hierarchy of my instincts, or it may not. But as you pointed out, that once you started doing more recovery work, it sounds like that social instinct really feels like home to you now.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like,
That's
so,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy, and thank you, Michael. So, and any final words before we wrap up?
Go easy on yourself and just take on one goal per week if you can, and get a friend to support you so you don't have to do it all alone.
Thank you, Michael. Lots of friends in Surrender School, so keep us in mind.
Yeah. All
Thank you,
right.
Michael.
Thank you,
Okay.
Michael.
Thank you. Many blessings.
To you too.
Thanks for recovering with us.